Have you ever thought of the relationship between musicians and software engineering? If you haven't and you're trying to find good software engineers, then consider looking into good musicians. And here's why. Good software engineers have a lot of overlapping characteristics with good musicians. For example, good software engineers require a good set and understanding of analytical thinking. But what does that really mean, and how does that relate to musicians? Analytical thinking is really that ability to break down larger pieces, larger solutions or problems into smaller ones. But then you're also able to understand each component individually and how they play a role within a larger ecosystem. So it means you have that ability to attend to detail, break down larger problems into smaller ones. And then you also have a diverse set of perspectives or different angles by which you're looking at the same situation or the same problem. How does that relate to music? Let me explain. Consider the following note. That small modulation or change comes from a very minute change in the fingering position. However, the change is very noticeable. A musician has to constantly be practicing what is the desired outcome versus the current situation. And that practice eventually becomes second nature. What that means is a musician has to constantly be attentive to every single detail individually and as a whole. And that is part of good software engineering. Now, the ability to think in different perspectives comes from the understanding that these 3 notes or 4 notes or whatever notes you're playing can be played in many different ways. For example, those were the same 3 notes. However, they were modulated differently, paced differently. So that ability to think in different perspectives is something very, very important in software engineering. The ability to work in teams is also another reason why musicians can often make good software engineers. Musicians often play within an orchestra, within a quartet, a quintet, or whatever, a duo, right? So they're often exposed to playing in teams and sharing the stage. And that is something that obviously is very important within software engineering because it's a group setting that leads to overall goals that the team achieves together, right? So a good software engineer is able to play well within a team. And they're also open to constructive criticism. Now, again, how does that relate to music? Well, let me explain. Consider again this example. Obviously, that is definitely out of tune. Now, if you can't hear that, trust me, it definitely is. So a musician that plays that piece or is practicing and somebody within the team or a peer listens to that would definitely let them know, right? Hey, that seems to be off tune. That's definitely off tune. Consider doing the following. And so that ability to constantly be exposed to constructive criticism is something that is very valuable within a software engineering team, right? So in the context of software engineering, hey, that class, how you broke down that component, you placed it in a module or within a component that has too much dependency on other packages that are not internally managed or whatever the topic is, you're always open to constructive criticism. And that's a very important characteristic because it allows you to grow and it allows the entire team to benefit from the positive feedback. So after listening to the criticism and taking it into account, it should sound much better. Yeah, I think that sounds better. And so you have that dialogue and you continue to move forward as a team. There's also this concept of patience and perseverance. In order to learn and memorize a 4 or 5 minute piece in the violin, there's a lot of notes, there's a lot of modulations, and you have to have a very strong work ethic. When you have a strong work ethic, you organize and you structure your code in ways that are helpful to the team. You manage your time well. You focus on the value add, not always perfection, but you're always aiming for additional excellence whenever you can. You also have this acceptance of directors and modulation. So when a musician is part of an orchestra and the director says, we want this segment to be much lower or much higher or much stronger, like staccato or quiet or loud or whatever it is, right? The terminology with music. You are constantly open to the directives of that individual or set of individuals that are leading the team or leading the group as a whole. You independently have to play your part and your role, but you also have to play within some of those confines that a director or the first chair musician is prompting the team with. There's also this concept of the ability to adapt and learn quickly, right? So the ability to adapt, meaning in the context of music, if the band or the team says, hey, let's change the key of the song into a higher key or lower key, you all of a sudden have to readapt all your fingering positions within music. In the context of software engineering, that might be, hey, let's adapt or let's just change all of these components to be more modular, and let's put them into modules and NPM packages that we can share across the organization. You have to have that ability to adapt quickly, but then you're also open to those ideas because you're constantly, as a musician, doing those sorts of things very naturally. You also embrace curiosity and experimentation. So consider the following. That transition or this or that, right? You constantly are open to being curious about what would it sound like if I did it this other way, or if I did a double note, or if I accentuated or modulated this or that. So that experimentation and curiosity is something that is also very highly developed in music, and that is applicable to good software engineering. Last but not least, and there are many other components, right? Or overlapping skill sets and characteristics between good software engineers and good musicians. Understanding good software design. What does good software design mean, and how does that relate to a musician and this idea that good musicians can often make really good software engineers? Well, in music, a good piece or a good performance is often led by the understanding of who is receiving and who is accepting of that performance, and what is their interpretation of your interpretation and how they're feeling and receiving that. So in software engineering, the same is also very true. You're building a solution, but it's not just for the intricate value of, oh, this is great and it's 2 lines of code, but it's really, are you solving that business outcome? Are you delivering that business value? And your solution, how you're perceiving it and how you're delivering, and the other end, or the end customer or the end user or whoever is on the receiving end, how they're interpreting and accepting and feeling about that solution, right? So it's not always about just being efficient and scalable and maintainable. Yes, those are pretty much basic components. That's like saying in the same area of music, your notes are on point, on key, on time, right? It's almost like the de facto set of things. You have to be efficient, scalable, and maintainable. If you're not doing those things, then you don't even have the basic components. But good software design goes above and beyond that and has a much deeper understanding and is related to how is my interpretation and my performance leading to a desirable result or outcome in the receiving end. So you understand those principles of encapsulation, modularity, and abstraction, just like you do in music. You also see that in software.